Hey everybody, welcome into Folklore and Flourish. Mark is still falling for the oldest trick in the book. How does it feel?
Good, great, grand, wonderful. Thanks for asking. I appreciate you.
It's a touchy subject. Clearly, it's too soon to discuss it. Anyways, you're with Jane and Mark over at Blue Box 29, and today is April 10th. Last time Mark came, he was supposed to really showcase the date.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
he intentionally blocked it from the video, so he's kind of struggling being mature. Yeah. Thank you for finally acknowledging.
I don't know if that's real life. Do you think it's real life, Molly? Molly's just off camera, people.
Yeah, Molly's upset because she has been sitting in Mark's chair every day he's been gone. And so she is just she was a second ago glaring at him pretty bad.
She yelled at me.
She did. But today is all about the waters. So we entered week 2. So week 1 of April was the doorway. So it was all through the passage, also returning through the doorway. But this week we're focused on the other realm. So we are just dove right into the other realms. So we started with the map.
Yeah.
And that we kind of talked a little bit about that last night. Mark accidentally drew some sketches that I've seen people guess Avalon looks like. You know, it was just kind of cool little pieces of that island. And it was the day after we did that reading. And then we did creatures yesterday. Creatures are always fun. It wasn't always the cliche ones. I did the unicorn legends from France.
Nice.
I thought was funny. I told the Scottish not to be angry with me because it's their national animal. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that later. But today is the waters. I was really excited to have you come today because of the first story, the Lady of the Water, the Lady of the Lake. I'm in Arthurian. You were kind of the person that reminded me of that story when we first met, which was interesting because that wasn't an aspect I ever actually looked into. I always thought Excalibur was the sword pulled from the stone.
Right.
And you corrected me, and it was just really cool. It was cool because I already liked mythology and folklore, and you kind of filled in some of the stuff that you liked.
Yeah.
Too. But anyways, today's all about the waters. We're in the other realm. And the theme of today is liminal lakes and seas. So liminal lakes and sea. So we're going to see that with 4 stories today. The first one you already know is Arthurian. Then we're going to look at Slavic, Yoruba, and then Celtic folklore today. So enjoy these 4 stories on the water. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the cultures behind the stories we are about to explore. The tales shared here come from many peoples, lands, and traditions. I do not change these stories to fit modern expectations or to align with today's social standards. Instead, I present them as they were told, sometimes beautiful, sometimes harsh, sometimes challenging. We are not here to judge the past, but to understand it, to listen, to learn, and to honor the ancestors who carried these stories forward. We also share stories from various religious traditions. These are presented in their historical and spiritual context, with respect for their beliefs that they represent. Every culture deserves respect, context, and acknowledgement, and this space is dedicated to doing exactly that. Story 1, The Lady of the Lake, the Keeper Beneath the Surface. Within the Arthurian traditions of Wales and broader medieval Britain, the Lady of the Lake is not merely a figure of enchantment, but a guardian of a liminal realm that exists beneath and within the waters themselves, representing the understanding that lakes and still waters are not empty surfaces, but thresholds into deeper, structured domains, and she is most widely known as the one who bestows the sword Excalibur upon King Arthur, extending her arm from the water to offer the weapon, an act that signifies not only the granting of power, but the emergence of something sacred from beneath the visible world. The lake from which she rises is not described as an ordinary body of water, but as a place of stillness, depth, and concealment, where the boundary between worlds is thin and where what lies beneath is not immediately accessible, suggesting that the water serves as both a barrier and a passage, concealing a realm that operates according to its own laws and inhabitants. In many versions of the tradition, the lady herself resides within a submerged domain, sometimes described as a palace or structured dwelling beneath the surface, reinforcing the idea that the unseen world within water is not chaotic, but organized and inhabited, and that entry into this realm is not achieved through force, but through invitation, alignment, or specific circumstance. Her role within the Arthurian cycle extends beyond the gifting of Excalibur, as she is also associated with the raising of Lancelot, taking him into her underwater realm to be raised away from the human world, indicating that the water is not only a place of passage, but of transformation, where individuals may be shaped in ways that cannot occur within ordinary reality. The Lady of the Lake is neither fully benevolent nor malevolent, but operates according to a logic that reflects the nature of the realm she inhabits, one that is responsive, selective, and not bound by human expectations, and interactions with her often carry consequence, emphasizing that engagement with such a domain requires respect and awareness rather than assumption. The act of returning Excalibur to the lake at the end of Arthur's life further reinforces the cyclical relationship between the human world and the unseen realm within the water, as the sword is not lost but returned to its origin, disappearing beneath the surface as the lady reclaims it, demonstrating that what emerges from the water remains connected to it, and that the boundary between possession and return is part of a larger system of exchange. This narrative reflects a broader understanding within Celtic and Arthurian traditions that water holds memory, power, and continuity, and that what lies beneath it is not separate from the world above, but exists in parallel, influencing and interacting with it through moments of crossing and exchange. The Lady of the Lake therefore represents a presence within water that is both guardian and mediator, illustrating that lakes and still waters are not passive landscapes, but inhabited spaces with structure, intention, and awareness, and that encountering such a presence requires recognition of the threshold it represents, reinforcing the lesson that water is not empty, but layered with meaning and life that extends beyond immediate perception. Story 2: The Rusalka, the memory that lingers in water. Within the folkloric traditions of Eastern Europe, particularly among Slavic cultures of regions such as Ukraine and Russia, the Rusalka is understood as a water-dwelling spirit whose presence is deeply tied to memory, emotion, and the unresolved, inhabiting rivers, lakes, and wetlands where the boundary between life and death, past and present, become indistinct, and unlike beings that exist independently of human experience. The Rusalka is often described as originating from those who have died in ways that disrupt the natural order, particularly young women who have drowned, whether through accident, betrayal, or despair, and as such, their presence within the water is not neutral, but charged with the emotional imprint of their lives and deaths. They are frequently depicted as appearing near the edges of water, especially at dusk or night, their forms both alluring and unsettling, capable of drawing the attention of those who come too close. And while some accounts portray them as playful or seductive, others emphasize their danger, describing how they may lure individuals into the water, leading them to drown, not always out of malice, but as an extension of the unresolved state that defines their existence, reflecting the idea that what remains within the water carries forward what was left incomplete. The Rusalka's connection to seasonal cycles, particularly the time of Rusalka week, further reinforces their integration into the natural world, as their activity is believed to increase during certain periods, aligning their presence with the rhythms of growth, fertility, and decay, illustrating that they are not separate from nature, but part of its ongoing processes. Water in this context becomes a repository of memory, holding not only physical remnants, but emotional and spiritual traces. And the Rusalka embodies this accumulation, representing the persistence of what has not been resolved or released. Interactions with the Rusalka are often governed by caution and ritual, with traditions advising against approaching water at certain times or in certain ways. acknowledging that these spaces are inhabited and that engagement with them requires awareness and respect. And in some stories, offerings or protective measures are used to avoid their influence, indicating that the relationship between humans and these spirits is one of negotiation rather than control. The Rusalka therefore represent a form of unseen presence within water that is shaped by memory and emotion, illustrating that bodies of water are not empty, but hold layers of experience that continue to exist and influence the present, and that what is encountered within them may reflect not only the nature of the place, but the histories embedded within it. This narrative reinforces the idea that water retains what passes through it, and that its depths are not simply physical, but experiential, containing traces of what has been, and that engaging with such spaces requires recognition of their layered nature, demonstrating that the unseen world within water is not only inhabited, but informed by the past, and that what lingers beneath the surface may still be active, shaping interactions in ways that are not immediately visible. Story 3, Yemoja, the mother of waters and all that flows. Within the spiritual traditions of the Yoruba people of West Africa, particularly in what is now Nigeria, Yemoja, also rendered as Yemoja or Yemọja in diasporic traditions, is understood as a premortal water deity whose presence is not confined to a single body of water, but encompasses rivers, oceans, and the very essence of life that flows through them, representing both origin and continuity. And unlike localized spirits tied to specific lakes or rivers, Yemọja exists as a vast and encompassing force, often described as the mother of many Orisha, the divine beings within Yoruba cosmology, reinforcing her role as a source from which life and structure emerge. Her name itself is often interpreted as mother whose children are like fish, symbolizing abundance, fertility, and the deep connection between water and life. In this association, positions her not only as a guardian of water, but as the embodiment of its generative power, sustaining and nurturing all that depends upon it. Yemoja is frequently linked to rivers in earlier traditions, particularly the Ogun River, and later becomes associated with the ocean in diasporic contexts, reflecting the expansion of her domain while maintaining her identity as a maternal and protective force. And her presence is understood to be both gentle and powerful, capable of nurturing and sustaining, but also of overwhelming and reshaping when necessary, illustrating that water, in its full expression, carries both creation and destruction within it. Interactions with Yemọja are structured through ritual, offerings, and reverence, acknowledging her as a living presence within the water rather than an abstract concept. These practices emphasize the importance of maintaining balance and respect in relationships to the natural world, as her favor is believed to bring protection, healing, and guidance, while disregard or disrespect may result in imbalance or hardship. The ocean and rivers within this framework are not seen as empty expanses, but as inhabited spaces that carry intention and awareness, with Yemoja's presence flowing through them, reinforcing the idea that water is not passive, but active and responsive. Her role as a mother figure extends beyond physical creation into emotional and spiritual domains, as she is often invoked for comfort, protection, and the restoration of balance, particularly in times of distress, reflecting the understanding that water holds not only life, but emotional depth and continuity, and that engaging with it can facilitate healing and transformation. The vastness of her domain emphasizes that the unseen within water is not limited to isolated points, but exists as a continuous presence that moves through all connected waters, linking rivers to oceans and individuals to the broader system of life. Yemọja therefore represents a form of unseen life within water that is expansive, nurturing, and foundational, illustrating that water is not merely a container, but a living system that sustains, connects, and responds, and that recognizing this presence requires an awareness of the relationships that flow through it, reinforcing the lesson that nature is not uninhabited, but alive with forces that give, take, and transform in accordance with their own structure and purpose. Story 4, The Well of Segais, the water that holds all knowing. Within the mythological traditions of Ireland, particularly in early Celtic lore, the Well of Segais, sometimes associated with the source of the River Boyne, is described as a sacred and hidden well that exists at the center of knowledge, a place where water is not merely a physical substance, but a living repository of wisdom, memory, and insight. And unlike bodies of water that serve as thresholds or domains for beings, the Well of Segais functions as a concentrated point of understanding, where the structure of reality itself is reflected and held. Surrounding the well are 9 hazel trees, whose nuts fall into the water, and these nuts are said to contain all knowledge, each one holding the essence of understanding that, when consumed, grants insight into the nature of the world. And within the well resides the Salmon of Knowledge, a fish that feeds upon these hazelnuts, absorbing their wisdom and becoming the embodiment of all that is known. This connection between the trees, the water, and the salmon creates a system in which knowledge is not static, but moves, cycles, and accumulates, illustrating that wisdom is not separate from the natural world, but embedded within it, carried through elements that interact and transform. One of the most well-known narratives associated with this tradition is the story of Fian Mac Cuil, a young figure who, while cooking the salmon of knowledge for his teacher, accidentally burns his thumb and instinctively places it in his mouth, thereby absorbing the wisdom contained within the fish, an act that was not achieved through deliberate pursuit, but through a moment of contact and alignment, reinforcing the idea that knowledge within this system is not taken by force, but received under the right conditions. The well itself is not described as easily accessible, and in some accounts, it is protected or hidden, emphasizing that its contents are not meant to be approached casually, and that the presence of such a place requires respect and understanding rather than assumption. Water in this context becomes a medium through which knowledge is stored and transmitted, not in a symbolic sense alone, but as an active participant in the movement of understanding, holding and releasing information as part of a larger system. The Well of Segais therefore represents a form of unseen structure within water, where meaning, memory, and insight are contained and organized, illustrating that bodies of water can function as more than physical landscapes, serving instead as repositories of what has been, what is, and what can be known. This narrative reflects a broader Celtic understanding that the natural world is not inert, but infused with layers of significance that can be accessed under specific conditions, and the interaction with these layers require a recognition of their presence and purpose. The well stands as a reminder that knowledge is not always found through searching outward, but may be encountered through connection with what already exists within the world, and that water, as a medium of continuity and reflection, holds within it the capacity to carry and reveal what is otherwise unseen, reinforcing the lesson that nature is not empty, but filled with intelligence that flows beneath the surface, waiting not to be taken, but to be received. Everybody, welcome back into Folklore and Flourish. I had to cut you off before you continued.
It was gonna get good.
Yeah, I knew it was going to, but
It's gonna. Well, I mean, it was already good, so it's gonna get gooder.
it was going to get gooder. I have no doubt in my mind that it was. But we hope you enjoyed those 4 stories. 4 stories were all about the water today. The theme is liminal lakes and seas. So our lesson with those 4 today was that water remembers magic. So I was really excited for you to be here, and then I kind of talked to you about it a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
But I kind of shared just the fact that it was the water.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're a water baby, even though you're born under the biggest sun month of the year, right? Yeah. But you like water stuff. You like water sports. You like water activities, but a major reason why I wanted you in here was because you're a big, big believer that water holds memory. 100%. That water connects every single thing. So that's why I was really excited to have you here today.
Yeah.
And so before we jump into these 4 stories, was there anything you wanted to share about that?
No, yeah, just I mean, you kind of nailed it. Just find that water. Through everything I've seen, I truly believe that water is what gives us life. When you look at the studies they've done with water on a
molecular.
Yep, there it is, level, and then what it does. And they've looked at it to the point where all these different studies of when you speak in your water and you talk love into it, and they've done it to where they put it in like water in rice, and they talked love into it, and the rice stayed wet. But the rice with the water where they spoke angry, stuff to it. It turned black and moldy. Very
Oh,
cool. Yeah,
interesting.
it's very cool little study. So they've done all kinds of studies like that where they're talking to it. And then they see and found when water freezes and thaws, it resets it to where it turns into its basic structure of it tells whatever it hits to grow. It tells it to live. Pretty much is like when I grab the water that we drink out of and I speak love into it, that's pretty much what it does. And so when it rains or snows or whatever, and then you got the frost and then it melts and then you got the runoff and then everything grows in the springtime. Well, that's a big reason why.
So you're saying whether it rains or it pours, it will. Interesting.
But yeah, no, water is just something that, I mean, we are 90% or whatever percent water, right? So
I thought it was like 70.
you know, either way,
Okay.
whatever it is, yeah.
But because we have so much water within us.
Right.
Like I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to be here. Water. I've also we talked about this. I've always felt that water is the healing element. I think that the cartoon Avatar: The Last Airbender was spot on with the properties of water.
Yeah.
I loved the little throw-in of the blood manipulation, but that's not what we do. Like that's why we're given this power kind of thing too. But the sense that it can heal and liberate is kind of why we did with our book. A trial that's in the water is it's emotion. It's every emotion carried through it, and it moves with and dances and remembers, and then it liberates in the end. So it's a place of reunion and liberation, and I always felt that with water.
No, it's a big thing. A lot of things can come of it. It cleans you. I know there's been so many times where me personally have just kind of felt that yuck and have just went and stood in the shower, not necessarily to take a shower to clean myself like with soap, but to just stand in the shower and I energetically will say things.
I've done that.
The only issue I don't like is the fact that there's chlorine in our water, and it's actually very detrimental to shower with chlorine.
But that's why we need to look into in our property, like our well stuff. My dad's really good with that kind of stuff. So I feel like we should talk to him. That's the benefit of that property over there, though, too.
Yeah.
Because if there's really clean water wells down there, we can just start using that, bearing in mind and everything. But jumping right into the first story, The Lady of the Lake. So this was a story you enjoyed, right, when you were younger?
Yeah.
Because you enjoyed the Arthurian stuff.
Yeah.
I think most boys definitely did. I mean, I enjoyed it, and I'm not a boy, so I'm not saying it's like one side, but I told you last night, Arthurian it's just adventure. It's like boys going through boyhood into manhood, being tested by their courage and their valor and their loyalty. I think it's just a fun mythology. Yeah, it has its downsides and
for sure
that kind of stuff. But this, the Lady of the Lake, it wasn't like a sexual thing at all. It was simply a magnificent creature coming up. And why I'm saying that is because they still kept it about the men, right? The knights, the king, and all of that. So is that kind of why you liked it, or am I missing something else?
Well, it's just the whole adventure thing and the possibility of the what if. One, this kid pulls this sword out. So as a boy, you're just like, I played that out because I remember watching The Sword and the Stone as a kid, like young. My mom introduced us to it because it's a great movie. And I just remember, playing that, doing that, watching that over and over. And it's just like the magic of it and the Merlin. Like, I don't know. I wanted to be Merlin. He was cool. Turn himself into a fish and go swimming around in a little pond. Like, seriously, I wanted to do that.
The squirrel scene, too.
Yeah. So just that whole realm of possibilities, and then the dragons and the witches and all of that it drew me in. And I'm surprised I didn't do more with it, because seriously, I was just like way into it.
Right. It's fun. And I'm excited for what we talked about last night with our books moving forward. Kind of both of us advocating in our own ways that we want that story to just kind of remain that. Where we use the Arthurian mythology, we're going to use the classic literature piece and a fairy tale that are about the boy into manhood or adventure just in general. I think the 3 that we got lined up for it last night, it's like chef's kiss. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
Because it'll kind of shift the emotional and spiritual stuff in the others, in the other books. And then we mean like growth by that. We're not pushing any agenda. That's the main thing is kind of the interconnectedness of everything.
Right.
But yeah, I had no idea though that, I mean, you knew that the sword came from the Lady of the Lake. So that's obviously why I made sure to put it in eventually.
Right.
But I had no idea that Lancelot was raised by the Lady of the Lake.
That's one of those details that I actually spaced, and it's one of those things where like you were so into it and then you just kind of forget so much, where when you hear it, you're like, wait, did I know that? Was I aware? And say, oh yeah. Okay. So it's one of those things where now I want to watch as much stuff as I can on it again and dive right back into it. But it's not time for it, unfortunately, but there is a time coming very soon.
But I think that it may have said, yeah, but is it? Like we're about to go embark on these adventures and traveling and stuff. Yeah. So it's saying, boom, hey, surprise. Here you go. You have all your stuff aligned. Now, when you go out, remember what it feels like. So I think it's going to be closer than we thought or realized.
Oh, for sure.
But we're starting it in this book that we're writing now. Because book 1 introduces that character that we need for that separate Arthurian. Right. So that's exciting too. And it's not Arthur. I'll tell you that right now. It's not an Arthurian character. No. It comes from a different one of the other pillars. But still.
It's a weird pillar. And if you think about a ball and then put a spider web inside that ball, that's where you're at. It could be anything.
But what's interesting is that all 3 of those tales, I believe, connect to England.
Yeah.
So, but it'll be fun so we get to throw in the Irish and Scottish aspects and the Welsh of King Arthur, because this is a Welsh story.
Right.
So, I mean, I think we do exactly that. He was all of those places, but they all hold those specific things that happened there. And then, of course, there's the obvious Lady of the Lake in Scotland, right? Nessie. They could always come in too. I'm not for this aspect, but to showcase that the waters there are super.
Yeah.
Very filled with the magic and everything.
Well, it's just portals in there is all it is, and they're just swimming out. And they're like, oh, hey, here you go. I felt your presence, your energy. You're going to need this.
Water, again, connecting more than we even know. So water touches every aspect of the earth.
Yeah, pretty much. And there's huge bodies of water underneath us, huge oceans. More water. They say there's more water underground than there's above ground.
Well, there's that Naga realm too. That's what we talked about yesterday. The Nagas that live in that. I told you about that. There's different layers, and how the more I read about it, the more I've been said. I don't think it's as simple as a globe or a flat. I think it's so.
If you think about a layer of cake. So you asked me earlier if there was anything else from yesterday. Bringing this up, I don't remember if you remember me saying something, but it was like a layer. So if you look at
we talked about Atlas and you brought up.
Yeah. So it's like what I see when I think about where we're at. There's just everything is stacked on top of everything. And then like one thing I really like that people have heard, the analogy that I really enjoy lately, is turn your radio on, an old school radio with the dial. And here we listen to 92.7, right? That's the regular station. And then, there's a couple other ones, but that's the main station. And then where we live, we are very secluded. There's only a couple stations, so we turn it, and then there's the other one. But there's all these other stations that have nothing but static until you move a little bit closer to something else. Like, say we go down south where there's Vegas and stuff.
Right.
Now, a station that was static, as I get closer, is going to start coming into play. And now I can start to hear it. And it's not because nothing was ever being transmitted on that station. No, it's always. And now when I go down there, there's even more going on. So there's like 50 radio stations, and all I have to do is turn that knob. And that's the same as our reality. So when I was seeing, like, you see like an elephant, right? And then it's like running on the plains and they're out here, but then right above it, there's something else. And it's just like layer upon layer of what can I see and what am I going to tune into today? And that's the same thing with the water, is like, it allows you to do that, I think, to really play with it.
It's almost like thinking of like the hair, how much hair we have, but that's like how many realities live within the one that we're in right now.
Easily.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's so layered on top of each other that we see our hair as just one thing.
Yep.
When, look at how many different pieces there are. I mean, we shed so much every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yet it's still full of life. It's still there.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously I have super thin hair, so saying full, it's crazy. But still, even with thin hair, how many pieces are there?
Yeah.
I like the way that you added all of that in there as well. This is why I wanted you for the water one. Like you just, I don't know, naturally talk about it, because it's kind of the way that you talk normally. It's like the interconnectedness of stuff. I liked the second one because it's all these myths and legends and stuff that we hear of women of the water.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we hear it across all cultures. The scorned woman, the upset one, right? The La Llorona. I'm in Mexico. I know that there's one up in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
We have the, and I don't know why I can't remember the other main one. But all these women that are scorned and they die in the water, or they do something major in the water. And we go, well, they're ghosts. It depends what you believe in and stuff. But this story right here, the Rusalka says, if water retains memory, why wouldn't something deeply emotional like that take form in the water?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it be there? Not the sense of ghosts like we see in a lot of movies where, oh, I can touch you, or like the poltergeist to interact, or the ghosts that are full apparitions and stuff. But more of that like energy, where you get your hair stands up, you know you shouldn't be in this area, or you hear the animals start getting angry. Nature does. I think this says it. You can't believe in one thing and not acknowledge the existence of the other. What do you think about that?
I love that analogy, especially the not believing in one thing and the other. That's kind of like it made me feel instantly of, how can you be mad if you believe in God when someone goes, to hang out with them?
Right.
And it's pretty much the same thing, the way you just said it. How can you not have one without the other?
Or how can you believe in angels yet disregard the work of devils or demons? And that's, of course, us saying that word, there's good, there's bad, but it's really just people trying to progress, people trying not to. I mean, there's two sides to almost everything, but so many different layers in between as well.
Mm-hmm.
But one can't just live by itself, because it would just be, everything would be centered around that then. But yeah, that's what this story just made me think, is that the emotional aspect that memory holds. Yeah. So it's not just, or the emotional aspect that water holds. It's not just the memory in it, it's the emotion.
Well, yeah, like the rice thing that I was saying, exactly like that.
Right. And so like drowning is one of the worst ways to go. I'm not saying that because I've experienced drowning. I'm just saying like the ping test, whatever test that they've done where they showcase that that's, a pretty tough way to go. For a number of reasons, the fear, all this stuff. I do 100% believe that the water in that area, like the rocks that have water constantly touching it, they remember that. So those memories stay. But then again, wouldn't that mean that the memories always transfer? too? Like if it's flowing water.
I think it could be, man, I think that's a tough thought. Like if it's flowing, right? It's always renewing. And so one thing too with water that I've seen is when we pump water into cities and do stuff with it and we take it out of its natural flow. So like it's going in pipes and it's going to 90-degree angles, blah, blah. So like yesterday, you and I were having a conversation about snakes and water. And how like if you look at a river, any map and zoom in or out just enough to where you look at how the river is shaped. It's back and forth, back and forth. So what's happening with that, from what I've seen, is that's the renewal. Going that natural flow of going around.
Mm.
Water doesn't just go somewhere. No, water is like that move, sway, just kind of with. There's no need for water to be forceful because it is forceful in a gentle way.
Right.
It can be extremely, hard. Like if you look at rapids in a river, right? But still, it's still just kind of, it's forceful because it's moving fast. But if you think about it, it's still just kind of moving around the rocks, up and down.
Right. You still get those places where it's shallow.
And then it'll
get
slow
to see
down.
where it's calm.
Yeah.
So it's more about all of the things that the water's touching.
Yeah.
So it's imprinting on that place. It happened in the water, so the water heightens the fact that it can be retained, the memory retained, but it's retained by the other objects in the area.
Yeah, and I think also maybe something else energetically needs to help bring it back out, because with the water being renewed all the time and moving, I don't know that it would hold to an extent, but I don't think it would be because it's holding because the water. I think with the energy, if it's hard enough of a time, energetically, I think you could put a stamp there in
Right.
time and place. So anybody that views this time in this place in which way could be because there's some electrical charge and it charges that spot where that thing happened. So then we experience it as a ghost, right? But it was just that charge of that moment, that memory. Now, there are sometimes that, maybe it's active, but I'm just speaking of the inactive, that charge of that place.
I think that like the vigils or the rituals that are done at some of these places are beautiful ways to end the cycle, but I don't think it's as ritualistic as all that crazy stuff we see in movies and stuff. I think it's something as simple as the candle, the very deeply personal release of energy. But that kind of makes sense though, because if something's there and we see all these cases where people go and put all this positive energy and then all of a sudden the energy changes, water, I think, is one of the best elements to do it with.
Yeah.
You see it in a different way. It's like fire is used with the lighting of candles a lot of the time. Air, obviously, earth, but water, it's the cleansing element.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every single mythology has its own flood story.
Yeah.
So that's the cleansing, right? Because in the end, that's where fire comes. Because fire destroys and completely wipes the slate clean.
Yeah.
And then stuff can come back, but not the same way. And so we've kind of talked about this with all the stories, but the Yoruba one, the Yemoja, so the mother of all waters. This one is just saying exactly everything we just said. Right. Everything is connected. Mm-hmm. And if everything is connected and it embodies this healing, all of this stuff, water is heavily feminine, right? It is a motherly thing. We've talked about that with snakes, right?
Right.
Every time I see it, even in that painting over there where I drew the snake person.
Yeah.
You were asking if I intentionally have the water flowing down like that, like the paint smeared down like that. And yeah, because I always associate the snake with water, right? So I always see it together. Snakes are another thing that,
yeah,
like that. When you look at a map and you see all of that stuff, it's crazy when you see all these waters connected, almost like roots reaching out, going, everywhere needs to. I don't know, it's just exciting to think that it was a person going, I want to give everything life. want everything to grow and survive. It's like Gaia, right? Mother Earth and the Sky Father. But Gaia also has all the water flowing through her. That's kind of what this one is saying. Is that now take everything we've thought of it before and now say it is a person. Something is helping it. So that's the motherly aspect, because what's protecting it is all that atmosphere around her, right?
Yeah.
To allow her to reach and to give everything life. So it was cool that this one kind of went, the Yoruba see water as heavily connected to mother and creation and the renewal of life. And so, I don't know, it's just cool. You can imagine that there's a huge respect for mothers down there.
Yeah.
Right? Because as life bringers, life givers.
Right. For sure.
And then, seeing the flip side of when you upset a mother and how different the atmosphere may feel, that the love isn't flowing as much and it stops. That's where those droughts come in and we see the flip side. And then story 4, we flip all the way back to Ireland, right? So like I said, with the Arthurian, this is Celtic, but a lot of overlap. We flow back to the importance of water. There's a lot of rain up there.
Yeah.
Like
it's very green, right?
Yeah. And just over in England, there was that day, it was like 70 something degrees and everyone was panicking or whatever.
Why?
Because that's the hottest,
70 is hot?
Yeah.
Fahrenheit or Celsius?
It was like hour 70.
Oh.
Yeah. No, it was like,
Really?
because it's a lot of rain. It's way cooler. So when it was that high and those buildings, their houses don't have AC.
Oh, man.
So how cool it always is. It was like a heat. Lots of people were like,
jeez,
in the hospital and stuff, I think, because of heat stroke.
Wow.
But
I mean, yeah, when you're so used to a certain temperature, it's like that. If you put a frog in water and slowly boil it, the frog will just stay in there, die.
What?
But if you put a frog in hot water, it'll jump out.
That's wild. Is that true?
I've heard that more than 5 times. So
just, more than 5 people trying this experiment?
I'm not saying that they tried it, but, if you're hungry.
Also, the water has all this memory and everything that it's retained. But water is also the flow of knowledge. And so we see here that the animal within there holds a knowledge, right? The salmon of knowledge. And as Fian is preparing it for his master, just unintentionally tasted.
Did he know that it was what it was, though?
It said that he was
preparing the meal,
so
which was fish, but I didn't take it as in he even knew what the fish did. I don't know. I just really enjoyed the fact that he was like, ow. And then, it's kind of a natural thing, makes sense. What was he touching that he burnt himself, that it went into his skin? I would like to know more of the story and how it exactly is, like the before, middle, after part. But I did enjoy the story of how he received it unintentionally, but it happened for a reason. Because
and that's what it says. It even says it was unintentional by him, but not by nature.
Yeah, it was supposed to happen.
And so if he wasn't the one that was meant to eat it, whatever contact,
made sure it was going to happen no matter what. And that's why I enjoy when things happen, and even in stories like this, because it's real. It really happens. If something is supposed to or not supposed to happen within your free will, it is or it isn't going to happen. Just like I said, that's why I'm not afraid of dying anymore, because I don't think it's coming anytime soon. So why be afraid? I'm not going to go out and be silly.
Well, also, why be afraid of something that's definitely going to happen?
Well, for sure. And it's probably going to be way cooler than this realm anyways.
Right.
What I believe. So.
Yeah, it's just cool. And then seeing that this well, there are so many different stories of wells. And there's that legends. I don't know if it was Oregon or Washington. Tall tale of this guy who had the well with magical properties. We saw that on the Y-Files.
Maybe.
We'll have to relook at it, but I can't remember if that guy was Irish. So it would just be interesting, because if the world is interconnected, you don't have to actually be living where your ancestors were for them to find you, for home to call you back. There are several little signs that we've talked about before. But with all of those, our daily thread is that the lady waits beneath still waters, holding what is given. Rusalka lingers where memory refuses to freight. The Yemoja flows through all, carrying life itself. The well gathers knowing, deep and unseen. Each water holds more than its surface reveals. Each depth contains memory, presence, and power. What moves beneath you is not empty or silent. It remembers. So the daily thread, I wonder if that's why our bodies and our skin retain memories, even when we don't want them to.
Right. Try to forget it.
Right. But there are just certain things in the temperature changes. Right. Our bodies almost betray us or go, hey, get out of here, whatever it may be. And I wonder if it is the water in our bodies. Because if it's that element that is really retaining stuff, yes, I can feel you, right? I can feel myself like this, and it's not watery, it's not all that. But, I mean, that's how we're moving. When we don't drink enough water, our body goes, like our brains start throbbing, your body starts getting nauseous. It wants more of itself to help us move on, to help us move forward, and even to just do our day-to-day functions. But then it would make sense that that's the part that's still holding on to an emotional response to something it didn't like.
Yeah.
It's going, ooh, remember this time? No, we don't like this. Remember, these are certain aspects we've seen before. So it kind of made me think of it in a different way, that if it's the water and the cleansing of water, that's where the energy work, like QHHT or even the Reiki, the flowing of the water helps release those feelings.
Well, that's a big thing when you're doing a lot of that stuff too. And they say purging, like a lot of people, it's crying or using the restroom or something. Think about what that is. After a QHHT session, typically 100% of the time, from what I understand, is the person that's been laying there has to use the restroom. And sometimes they have to use the restroom more than what they would assume would be possible. When they get that true connection where they're getting rid of the discomforts that they came in with, whether that's an emotional or physical feeling, doesn't matter what. So you're getting rid of it. So now energetically, you have to get rid of that somehow.
Right.
It was stored some way in your body, within your water, whatever it was. So when you get done with a session, the first thing you kind of want to do is have them go use the restroom because they have to go, but it gets rid of that energy. So I was holding on to it. Now I spoke it. So that's one way of letting it go. And then if your body's still holding on to anything, release it with water. So it is a big thing. It does.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. So our question and the reflection that we're going to walk away with, think about is, what emotion moves beneath me like a tide? So what emotion is moving beneath me like a tide? It's usually, like, if we struggle to think about it, I think about it as what emotion easily engulfs me. When it flows up and it's just, you can feel that that's kind of what it is. Or maybe it's even an emotion where you don't always know it's there, but it comes out of nowhere and it's a huge surprise. It's just boom. So it's a little bit different. It doesn't rise within you, but just what is moving beneath you, like a tide. What's that water saying underneath? And then today we are going to wash our hands slowly, attending to the sensation rather than past. So we're going to pay attention to the sensation of the water running across our hands, running through, all of that, as well as the soap, how it manipulates, how it changes weight, whatever it may be. And then the final thought for today is to acknowledge the underlying emotions without needing to resolve them immediately. So we're going to acknowledge them. But that doesn't always mean when we acknowledge something, we need to jump right into the task of fixing it or changing it. Sometimes simply just acknowledging that it's there is enough for it to peacefully go. Because now it's saying, okay, you've acknowledged me, and now you're acknowledging that I don't serve you anymore and I can go, rather than saying, oh, this is what's wrong with me, I guess.
Right.
But that's all that I have for you guys today. So today was all about the waters. Tomorrow is the woods. So we get to see some forest creatures or some forest deities. And of course, we already know that one of the biggest contributors in that life is water. So that's why we did water first. And then tomorrow we get to see the very life that water magnifies. I mean, think
Might
about
be fun to
those
jump in
trees.
tomorrow's episode. Maybe I'll come back.
Because tomorrow's the woods and then we have flowers.
Oh man, I love flowers. I got a nice flower shirt. I think I've worn it on here before.
We have plenty of flower shirts. You can wear them again. But with that in mind, we will see you guys tomorrow, possibly
guys.
Mark again for the woods.
Love you guys. Thanks for having me.